This is my presentation of what would happen if the Greeks and the Chinese forced the Romans. So first, a key. This is a Roman legion. These lines are pikemen, just standard pikemen. These arrows are cavalry, and any arrows like these, I don't know exactly what they're called, they're a certain type of bracket. These brackets facing any direction are archers in the back. And over here is the Greeks. They had a more march into battle perfectly in good line kind of a way of battling. So they didn't have legions, they marched in this giant army of pikemen and some cavalry in the back too. So in the first battle, they came to attack to them it was the left flank, but to the Romans it was the right flank. And they came to destroy the right flank. And when they came, they actually did destroy this because the right flank usually has more offensive things in it, because usually you defend with the left flank and you swing over and attack with the right. But since they weren't attacking in this battle, they were defeated because the right flank is for defense. In the second trip, they tried to fight the middle, and the middle is super strong because it has this arrow of cavalry at the top that broke through the Greek ranks. The Greek, how they were marching, if you get to the middle of that, if you can split them up, then you can encircle them. And so they did that, and this portion of the Greeks was destroyed because it all came to this, and they split up the ranks, and the Romans enclosed them. So here is trip 3. This time, the left, which is usually for defending, was already weak, and it actually tried to attack the Greeks. The Romans attacked the Greeks, and the Greeks used a method where they would put one drawbridge down, and every time that a Roman unit came, they would just come from the sides. The advantage they had is that the Romans couldn't all attack at once. They had to be single file, which made it very easy for them to be destroyed. So this legion got crushed there, and after that, they knew that they had to get to the middle legion because it had no flank defense. So they decided they were going to take the right instead of the left. No, that's later. They decided to take this right, and when they took it, they actually won it because in this battle, the Chinese came. And since the Chinese had great trade routes, they could buy really good armor. But on the other hand, there's a lot of battling going on in the Chinese. So they needed the part of the Chinese that helped the Greeks, needed a lot of people in their territory. So they could only send so many units. But they didn't send many units, but they gave them really good weapons because they had... Okay, so at the final battle, because of those units and this, they won. They defeated the middle and powerful legion with not too many casualties. So then we go to the next step. They're going to reposition. They're going to move all the way over here. So this time, the Chinese have actually invested some troops because they think that they can actually pull this off. So basically, with this, they have a lot less pikemen, these dashes. They have less pikemen spread apart further, and less cavalry because they got pretty good casualties over there. So they also, though, are reinforced with these stores, which are the Chinese. and the ones that are colored in are super or even more powerful, but these ones that aren't colored in are just flame guards. So the Greeks go, like always, for a head-on attack. So they take these squares and triangles. The squares are actually siege engines, which knock down walls, and the cavalry are there to defend them with a little bit of pikemen set in. So they go over here, and this is where you can see I crossed out these arrows because there were lines of archers. Well, I crossed that out because they were defeated by the pike and siege engine forces. So once they've got an entrance here, there's this secret little Chinese-based operation. So they took all the heavy armored units, or most of them, and the flank guards, and they took that and they took this. It's basically this, I would call it a hurricane, because the pikemen are like surrounding it, and in the very center are the siege engines and a little bit of cavalry. So they kind of advance, and they're very taken by surprise right here. They weren't expecting them to have more forces. So then the Chinese, they destroy this legion, because there's a legion here and a legion there. Destroy this legion. Meanwhile, over here, the Greeks advance, and this right legion comes over here, but then the Greeks kind of scare them off, because they weren't really expecting such a strong force. They expected these archers right here to do a lot more work to the Greek attacking force. So they retreat, and what they do is they go to the secret drawbridge in the very back. And it's just kind of good luck that the Chinese are going this way to try and join them, and they see the Legion meeting here, and they're curious, because the Chinese and this are like sneaky and curious. So they go right here, and since this White Legion is not expecting for anyone to be by them, they're not really ready, and they're not in Legion formation. So the White Legion gets destroyed, and the Chinese come, and so at this point, the Greek force is pretty weak, and the Chinese got casualties at this legion and some on here. So both of the forces are kind of weak. And the reason why Rome actually keeps these Indian trade routes, this is supposed to be in a spot in Romania where there's trade routes that you can tax the merchants, and it gets you a lot of extra money. So the reason that Rome keeps these trade routes is because of the Praetorian Guard. The Praetorian Guard is extremely, super heavily armed, and these weak forces, in the end, are defeated. So Rome barely survives. They would have to rebuild their whole fortress, and they lost a lot of soldiers. But in the end, the dictator, or the person who holds this area at part of Rome, they are still alive, and they still, although they don't really have control over it, they could still tax merchants. So they still have the trade routes. And that is my project on what would happen if the Romans forced the Greeks and the Chinese.
So tell us why you had to add in the Chinese. When did you figure out that you had to add in the Chinese?
Because basically the Roman legions, they had this great strategy of they were super good attacking against people like the Greeks, who had these straight lines, because they would break them in half and then surround them and crush them, or most of them actually became slaves. So in the end, the Romans defeated them. On my first thinking about it, the Romans were going to defeat the Greeks because they could break through the ranks.
It would have been pretty easy.
Yeah, because it's mainly because of this cavalry force. It's protected by pikemen, and they're above the the Greek pikemen. So the cavalry would just ride straight in, and then they would like split up, and it's just too hard for the Greeks to handle. So the reason the Greeks did have a chance, though, they had good strategy. They did very good strategy here. Destroying this left legion by single filing them was a very good idea, but they could pull it off by themselves. And so I added the Chinese because I wanted some secret operation to get through this moat. And the purpose actually was that these Chinese were supposed to be the force that wasn't destroyed, and that's why the Praetorian Guard defeated them, because of this secret legion. Because of the secret drawbridge and the legion. Because the legion wasn't really ready, but you don't really have to be ready because they still had all their swords on them.
Right.
They still had all their weapons, so they were still able to damage the Chinese. I think that if the Chinese could have gotten in, then they could have defeated the Praetorian Guard.
Yeah. So, and that's really good. I'm wondering, socially, do you think the Chinese ever really would have teamed up with the Greeks?
If the Romans were getting outrageous amounts of money, because you kind of have to go through Romania if you want to do ground trade routes. I think that the Chinese actually might, because their great trade is the Silk Road, and the Silk Road could be blocked by Romans, and then they would be taxed, and then their economy wouldn't be as strong.
Right.
So I think I don't know if they would actually really be allies, and more be like, let's team up, not because we like each other, but because we don't like this other person, this other country or nation. Right. So I think they might have, but if the Romans didn't go for the Silk Road, it would be a weird matchup. It wouldn't really make sense.
Right. Good. Excellent job. High five. Yeah.